This Chinese university only existed for 8 years. It had no grand libraries, no state-of-the-art laboratories. It was just a bunch of shabby huts with tin roofs way up in a remote mountain city. Air raid sirens or heavy rains often disrupted its lectures. But inside its makeshift classrooms, China's most respected professors were passionately teaching China's brightest students, so that one day they could pass down their culture and rebuild their nation. Today, let's talk about the National Southwest Associated University, commonly known in Chinese as Lianda. It was a wartime miracle of education. In 1937, Japan launched its full-scale invasion of China. Within months, Beijing and Tianjin fell. Amid the chaos, 3 of China's top universities, Peking, Tsinghua, and Nankai, made a truly courageous, patriotic decision. Rather than submit to Japanese governance, they decided to uproot themselves and move inland to free territory. They first regrouped in the central city of Changsha, but as Japanese troops advanced again, they had to move once more, this time all the way to the southwest city of Kunming, not too far from Myanmar. Getting there was brutal. A few professors and students made the long detour by train and sea through Vietnam, but most walked 1,600 kilometers on foot. They trekked for several months through mountains and mud, sleeping in temples and barns, carrying textbooks and bedding on their backs. Many students came from rich, well-educated elite families, so this was their first time experiencing China's vast countryside, its poverty, its struggle. After an arduous winter and spring of travel, in April 1938, the professors and students from the 3 universities finally converged in Kunming. There, they officially combined to establish the National Southwest Associated University, or Lianda. Each of the 3 universities' presidents served jointly on Lianda's governing committee. Kunming was far from the front lines, but life there was far from easy. Japanese bombers occasionally roared overhead. Resources were scarce. The university had to be built from scratch, often by the students. Roofs were mostly made of thin tin. During the rainy Kunming summers, rain would pound on the tin roofs like drum beats. Students sometimes sat in classes with umbrellas open, as water leaked through the ceilings. One day, during a lecture by the Harvard-educated economics professor Chen Dai-sun, the sound of the rain was so loud that his voice was completely drowned out. The professor simply smiled at the class and wrote 静坐听雨 on the board, which means sit quietly and listen to the rain. Instead of chaos or desperation, a peaceful hush fell over the room as everyone listened to nature's fury, embracing the moment. This famous listening to the rain incident became a symbol of Lianda's ability to find serenity and hope amid turmoil. But of course, life was not all romantic. There were no proper labs, not enough books, food, or winter clothing. Students were constantly cold, hungry, and sick. Even the university's top professors, most of whom graduated from top overseas institutions, lived in hardship. Here's a famous story about Mei Yiqi, the respected president of Tsinghua University, who was one of Lianda's key leaders. His family struggled financially in Kunming, so his wife started a small stall to sell homemade rice cakes on the street. And Mei had helped her. One morning in 1939, Mei was late to his lecture, which was highly unusual. When he arrived, slightly out of breath, he apologized profusely to his students. Apparently, he was helping his wife making rice cakes and lost track of time. Despite the difficulties, a fierce intellectual energy filled Lianda. Students studied late into the night in dim rooms, debating philosophy and science while wrapped in patched blankets. Professors kept teaching through bomb raids. For them, education itself was an act of resistance. Every formula learned, every poem written, every experiment conducted was proof that Chinese civilization would not be destroyed by war. Over 8 years, the makeshift University of Lianda matriculated more than 8,000 students. Its alumni would go on to play crucial roles in China's modern history. At least 8 Lianda graduates would go on to become core figures in China's atomic bomb, hydrogen bomb, and satellite programs. 2 other graduates, Yang Zhenling and Li Zhengdao, later won the 1957 Nobel Prize in Physics. Lianda graduates also became poets, engineers, scholars, doctors, and politicians. They have made immense contributions to rebuilding their war-torn nation. I also need to mention that more than 800 Lianda graduates joined the military during the war. 14 never returned. One of them was Dai Rongju, a meteorology student who joined the Chinese Air Force in 1941. After training in China and the US, he flew missions against the Japanese invaders, until he was killed in action in 1944. When Japan surrendered in 1945, the war was finally over. Lianda had fulfilled its mission to preserve China's intellectual lifeline through its darkest years. In 1946, after one final graduation ceremony, Lianda was dissolved. The 3 component universities, Peking, Tsinghua, and Nankai, returned north. The old Lianda campus later became Yunnan Normal University. Today, there's a small but well-run museum there that keeps Lianda's memory alive. Lianda only existed for 8 years, but its spirit still echoes through Chinese history. When the world was falling apart, these students and teachers chose not to give up. Under leaking roofs and flickering lights, they kept teaching, kept learning, and kept passing the torch of knowledge and the national identity from one generation to the next. That's why, to this day, many call Lianda the soul of China's education. Thank you so much for watching this video. See you next time.